Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think it's really important that we're having this conversation and that we're having the conversation about students and their health and their well-being, because over the past 2 years, many people have suffered, Mr. Speaker, but quite frankly, not more than our students. Our students are falling behind in every category of academics, social, emotional health, mental health. The past couple of years, we've seen the skyrocket in suicides amongst our young people, the feeling of angst and anxiety, all sorts of problems to deal with the pandemic and the effects of how we handled the pandemic, Mr. Speaker. The ironic part is that this population arguably was least at risk this past couple of years and most affected by our policies that we put in place. I know from personal experience in my own house and amongst my friends the stress and tears and anguish and despair of the students as they were forced to stay home, forced not to go to school, and when the school did reopen, they had to wear a mask all day. I've watched the bus stops in my neighborhood where young children get off the bus in the afternoon and throw it on the ground, the mask, because they just couldn't take it anymore, with really little or no evidence whether this actually worked. While the rest of the world was opening up, the schools stayed closed. While the rest of the world was getting on with their life, Mr. Speaker, the mask stayed on our kids. It made no sense. With that, Mr. Speaker, the clerk is in possession of an amendment. LCO 5060. Would you please ask the clerk to call it and I be allowed to summarize? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this amendment does one simple thing. Before we can impose such requirements or mask mandates on our children, before we could put them through the emotional toil that we have over the past 2 years, a review shall be mandatory or an evaluation by the public health in regards to the public health impact of such restrictions and balance those restrictions against the educational, emotional, and social support of such restrictions on our children. They have 30 days to complete the evaluation and report back, sir. Mr. Speaker, I think that we'll be studying for generations, or at least a generation, what we've done to our children over the past 2 years. I think it's important that we put in a safeguard so this never happens again. And if it does happen again, at least somebody will be out there looking out for them, unlike what happened over the past 2 years.